Yo, what is up guys, welcome to a new video. Today I'm gonna talk about how to make better build-ups. The build-up is the part between the breakdown and the drop, so it's like the transition of these two parts. And well, sometimes I hear some of the tracks that you send me for feedback and I hear a lot of problems in that part. So today I wanna help you a little bit on that and tell you what you can do to make it sound a bit better and make it sound a bit fuller, and at the same time make the sound drop better. Because as the build-up is the part before the drop, you can make a lot of things here that can help to make it seem that the drop is a lot powerful and a lot bigger and a lot fatter. And before going to the video, don't forget to leave a like, because your likes help me a lot to know what you like, what you don't like, and to know that I'm doing the things well, you know? So don't forget to scroll down and give that thumbs up. And with that being said, let's start with this tutorial. Here I have some sounds that I created. I created just some chords and a melody that I'm going to show you later. And this could be like a standard and super basic build-up. But this is super empty and boring because it's so static and just have some snares and a riser and some pads. So as I said, this is the part just after the breakdown and before the drop. So you have something like this in the breakdown. Again, you have your pads and you have some melodies and you have some background sounds and so on. So try to keep some of those things. For example, if you have a ride like this one, why don't you keep this in your build-up? It's gonna help a lot on your transition because you're not gonna have completely different sounds on the breakdown and in the build-up, you know? So for example, what I would do is just put those rides here, and maybe what you can do is make them fade out. So what you can do is just double click here, create an automation of the volume, and make them fade out a little bit and slowly. So this way, you have them here. That is important to the transition from the breakdown to the build-up, but then they are fading out, so it's like they are not interfering with anything and it's like the breakdown is ending. So as I said, the first tip would be to try to keep some of the sounds of the breakdown, and the second tip would be about the drums. Drums are so important and can help a lot to make it sound a lot fuller and add a lot of rhythm to it. So try to add some more drums on your build-ups. So for example, in this track we have the snare. And of course, what you can do is layer with other snare to make it sound fuller, like for example, add a snare with more noise. And we have the percussion of the breakdown, in this case the ride, that are fading out. But in this case, I think it's not enough. Or at least is so boring in my opinion. So what I would do is try to add some variation to the snare, like for example, add something like this here, or something like this. You know, to add some movement to it and make it not that boring. But what I like to do a lot, if you heard some of my progressive house tracks, is to add another snare that is doing another rhythm. For these things I like a lot to use trap snares, like this one. And for example, I like sometimes to do it this way, like it was the percussion of the drop. Or sometimes what I like to do is to make it sound super fast, like this way. But of course I like to add a side chain to this trap snare to give some space to the main one and to add more rhythm. This is too much. Something like this would be okay. And later, when it comes to the part where the main snare is going faster, you can also make this go faster. Just go here and click on half a step so you can duplicate it. And then here, the last part, you can also duplicate it a bit more. Just put it on fourth and you have it. But this part is not that pleasing, the sidechain, so what I would do is try to create an automation clip and here just take it out. Also, what I like to do a lot to make the snare sound a bit fatter is to add a kick underneath. The kick is gonna give a bit more transient to it and it's gonna add the sub bass of that. And if you layer it correctly with the snare, just don't make the kick too loud. It's gonna seem like the snare is fatter and not that you have a snare and you have a kick. And it sounds like this now. So this is way too loud, so reduce the volume. Something like this would be okay if you compare. And if we put the rest of the things, it would sound like this. It doesn't really seem like it has a kick, you know, it's like the snare is a lot fatter. And last but not least, what you have to do is, of course, pitch the snares up, and this helps a lot. Just put it on 12. Create automation clip and you have it here. Just make it go up, and on the trap snare also, but what I'm gonna do is put it on 12. right click and link to controller, because this way is this one, and you already have the same automation clip for both things. And also fade out the kick, so we start losing some of the sub bass. I'm gonna explain later why, but you need to cut the sub bass of the build-up. The third tip would be to add some effects. Just one riser is not enough. One riser is gonna help a little bit to make this rising effect, but it's not gonna make it sound full, and the transition is not gonna be good. So what you need to do is try to add a lot more sounds, and in my opinion what you need is one riser at least, one noise, you know, an uplifter, just noise to cover the space, and one for the sub bass. Also, of course, you need some effects for the transition between the breakdown and the build-up, but I'm gonna show you this now. So this would be some of the effects I would add on a build-up, and well, let's start from the first one. Is the riser I had before, and I added another one. Of course, it's in the same key, but this way you have some different things going on, and it helps a lot to have different risers. That, for example, one is doing like a rhythm, and another one is just going up. Also, I said I added some noise effects. For them to together sound like this. So they're gonna help a lot on the risers to make them sound a lot fuller. But if you add a sub bass that is going up, it's gonna cover a lot of space, and it's gonna cover all the low end and mid lows. As you can hear now, it sounds a lot fuller. But this is not enough, you know, because you need to add some sounds for the transition, for when the build-up starts, you know, you need to add some impacts. So what I do is add some noise down effects. I have two different ones, just a clean one, and one that is doing some movement. But to make this a bit better, what I need is, before of these two effects, I need a sweep up effect, a noise that is going up, something like this. Because this way is going to help a lot better on the transition. But as you could hear now, it doesn't sound that good because these two are super bright and this is not. So what you can do is just duplicate it, make unique, and reverse it. So now it's going to sound a bit better. But also what you can do is just EQ it, you know, and reduce some of the mid lows and increase the highs so it fits better with the rest. What if I don't have this sweep up? It would sound like this. It doesn't sound that bad, but if we have this sweep up, it's gonna help a bit better. You know that a transition is coming. Also, I like to add some crashes because it's like a real sound that is gonna help to make it sound a bit more natural. And I also like to add subdrops to help on the impact. Sometimes I just use impacts that have like low end or even have the impact on the subdrop, but in this case I just decided to use a subdrop. But be careful because it has to fit well with the sub riser, so make sure that when this is fading out, the sub riser is fading in and they don't clash. And now it sounds like this. So as you can hear now, it has a lot more energy. And well, in this case, I have here the kick and I have here some sub sounds. What I need to do is to add some sidechain or a peak control or something like this to make sure that when the kick is hitting, this sub rise and this sub drop are not playing or not that much, so the sub bass stays clean. So now that we have some effects and we have some drums that is going to help to make the build up a lot fuller and more interesting, what do you need? Well, as I said before, the build up is the transition between the breakdown and the drop. So you need sounds of both parts because this way the transition is going to be a lot better. If you only have the sounds of the breakdown and then the drop comes and have completely different sounds, it's not going to sound that good. So what I like to do, and most of people do, is add the leads with the melody of the drop but with a filter in the build up. So this way, as the build up is going, you start hearing what is going to sound at the drop. And also what you can do is fade out the breakdown sound, so this way the breakdown is ending and the drop is starting, so the transition is going to be a lot better. So well, here I have the leads with a melody I created just for this tutorial. It doesn't sound that good because it's like it's there when the build-up comes, you know, it's coming too fast, and at the same time it has the sidechain. So you don't want this. So what you have to do, so first what you have to do is create an automation clip of the sidechain and take it out here, and then when the drop comes you bring it back. And also what you need is a filter. So I have here a filter. This is the one I like to use the most. So just create an automation clip of this filter and make sure that when the build-up starts, it is on 0 or almost not hearable. Did you hear that click? To avoid that, what you only have to do is just start the filter a bit before. So this way is filtering in, and it doesn't sound just at the beginning of the build-up, and you start knowing what it's gonna sound after the build-up. But now when we get here, the leads have almost no filter. So what I like to do is just filter a bit more. Something like this, and it's gonna help then later when you come to the drop and you have the filter out, the leads are gonna sound completely how they are, and it's gonna have like an impact on the listener. And after these 4 tips, what you need to do is add some effect on the entire build-up, on everything, not only on the leads, not only on the effects, not only on the drums, in everything. The effects I like to use are the EQ, a reverb plugin or the Endless Smile, a stereo imaging plugin, and a volume plugin. So what you wanna do with these plugins is first with the EQ, what you want to do is cut the lows, because this way when the drop comes, as before you didn't have any low end, any sub bass, you're gonna bring it back on the drop and it's gonna seem like the drop is a lot fatter. If before that you have all the sub bass, when the drop comes, you're not gonna have that feeling that the bass came back and it sounds a lot fatter. Sometimes I also like to reduce a little bit the highs on the build up, and then when the drop comes you bring back also those highs, and this way it's gonna sound like it has more energy. With the reverb, what you're gonna get is, apart from making the build up sound a bit bigger, is make it go out, you know, it's going. So then when the drop comes and you don't have that reverb on everything, it's gonna seem like the drop is more in your face, and it's gonna have more impact on the listener, and it's gonna sound like it's more powerful. With the stereo imaging, what you wanna do is make it sound a bit more narrow, so then when the drop comes, it's gonna sound a lot wider. Because the build up, as you have a lot of sounds, you have the sounds on the breakdown, you have the sounds of the drop, you have effects and so on, it's gonna sound super wide, and then when the drop comes, it's gonna have the same width, so it's not gonna have any impact on the listener. But if you make it sound a bit more narrow just before the drop, I'm not saying make it completely mono, you know, maybe reducing 50% or something like this. When the drop comes and you bring back those sides, it's gonna have an impact like it's a lot wider, you know. And with the volume, what you want to do is reduce a bit the volume before the drop, so then when the drop comes, it seems it's a lot louder. If the build up is powerful and then the drop is at the same volume, with the same frequencies, with the same width and everything, it's not gonna sound that powerful. And sometimes on a lot of songs that they hear from you, they send me for feedback, I hear that the build-up is even more powerful than the drop, and then when the drop comes, you don't have that energy and you don't want to jump. What you want to do is make the listener jump. So let's show you this, and for example, I have here this EQ, and what I like to do is just use a low cut this way, so just automate it. But as I don't want to have this low cut here, what I do is just automate this knob here on the build-up, so I only activate this filter in the build-up. So some people like just to add the effect here, you know, start from here, but I prefer to do it from the beginning, so this way it's a bit smoother. And well, on the part where you have the fill, you don't really want to have this, you know, so just reduce it here, and let's see if it's too much or not enough. Maybe a little bit too much, so just a little bit less. Then with the Endless Smile or with the reverb, just increase this, you know, and this way you're gonna have more reverb on it. If I do it to the max, it's gonna sound like this. So as you can hear, it seems like it's far away and you don't want to do it that much, you know, just a little bit. And then just take it out on the fill or completely like this way, or just reduce it a lot. You need a little bit more, something like this probably. Something like this will be okay. Then just with the stereo imaging, I like to use this one. So just create an automation clip and maybe reduce something like this. Probably this would be too much, so maybe like 70%. I'm gonna copy the value and paste it here. And then finally the volume, and just do it for maybe 2, maybe 3 dBs max. I probably would use just 2. So copy the value and paste it here. And on this one, I like to keep it on the fill, and then just put it back completely on the drop. So if we compare before and after, before we only had the snare, the pads of the breakdown, and this riser, so it sounded like this. But now that we added the kick, another snare, we added the lead filter, we added the rise of the breakdown, we added some more effects, and also we applied all these effects of the EQ, endless smile, the imager, and the volume. It sounds like this. So well guys, these are my tips to make a better build-up. In my opinion, sounds way better. Of course, it doesn't sound that good now because it is not mixed. I didn't EQ anything. I didn't work on the volumes. I didn't work on the sound itself. So it needs more sounds on the breakdown and all those things. But of course, if you mix well your song and then you apply all of these tips, your build-up is gonna sound a lot better, and you're gonna make your drop sound more powerful. So if you have some tips I didn't show here, just leave it down below in the comments. And as I always say, we can learn from each other. So with that being said, hope this tutorial helped you a lot, or at least helped you in anything. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you miss any tutorial, because I upload one tutorial every single week. Thank you for watching guys, and see you in the next video.